Okay, so I'm going to get started by sharing my screen. I'm not actually going to show you Adipets yet. I'm going to show you how I understand your adoption process, and I want to confirm that I am understanding it correctly so that we can set everything up well for you. Oh, excuse me, I can let someone in. Okay, not that one. All right, and then throughout this session, please just shout if you have a question or a comment. I'm really bad at checking the chat while I do these trainings, so I prefer you just to interrupt me, and I really do want this to be targeted for you, so don't worry about interrupting. So what I'm showing you right now is a flow of how we understand your adoption process. So we're understanding that adopters are going to find out about your animals in one of two possible ways. So one, they're going to see pet listings on your website, get really interested, submit an application for a pet, and then come to the shelter. Or maybe they haven't even been on the website or they haven't submitted an application. And in that case, they're just going to walk in and start taking a look at your pets. All of these blue buttons are where Adipets comes in. So we're going to help your adopters check in, help give them instructions about what next steps are going to be, as well as help you manage a wait list of who's waiting to speak to you. If somebody finds the animal who's going to be a good fit and you approve them to be a good fit, we're also going to do some remote work so that they can sign a contract as well as complete the adoption fee, possibly make a donation to you all from their phone. If they do that, if we have an approved adopter, we're also going to let every other person who expressed interest in that pet know, hopefully direct them to some other animals, keep them in your adoption process, even if they didn't match with their first pet. And then we're also going to send a bunch of information to your adopters and potential adopters. So throughout this process, where we get to, counseling, to confirming that the pet has been adopted, we're going to send them email notifications. We're going to say, we got your application. Please come to the shelter as your next step. We're going to say, you adopted this pet. Here's the countersigned contract, and here's a link to HHS's adoption packet. So they've got all the information that they need to move forward. Adipets is kind of like an extension on top of PetPoint, so kind of like a Google Chrome extension, basically. So we will pull information from PetPoint about your animals. You won't have to duplicate data entry in order to advertise your pets, but we are not able to process that outcome in PetPoint for you at the end of this process. So there will still be a little bit of work in PetPoint at the end of this. I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but does this generally seem like an accurate description of how your adoption process is going to work for most pets?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so then I'm going to start by showing you, what this is going to look like for your adopter, and then we're going to go into the staff point of view after that. I'm going to start by working with this person, so someone who finds your website, submits an application, and then comes into your shelter, and what we'll do from there. I think it'll be pretty easy for you to see, to intuit how this walk-in person would work with that instead. So I'm going to start by showing you a real website. So this is,
So people don't actually have to apply. There's no application process prior to coming in. It's more of like a walk-in, first come, first serve basis.
So this is just giving us a second option. The application doesn't mean approval. It just speeds up their adoption process if they were to come in after that. So Katelyn will explain how that works, but the application questionnaire might be an easier word to comprehend. It doesn't necessarily mean that is pre-approved or that leads to an adoption. It's just them to express interest in another way for us to reach out to more adopters.
Okay.
So I'm showing you now what these pet listings would look like on your real website. So this is another client of ours, and basically we produce this content right here. It's just some code that your website developer inputs into it. And so we're displaying lists of animals who are available. We can separate that out by different locations that you all have. We can also show different pet characteristics. So this will depend on you assigning these characteristics to animals. But we can make it possible for someone to come to your website, know that they have dogs, want another animal who's experienced with dogs, and then filter down from there, kind of help them do a little bit of matchmaking on their own. All of the pet characteristics that we have are optional for you to use. So they will only show to your potential adopters if you assign them. That does mean that the more you use them, the more useful they are to your potential adopters. But it also means that, like say, some of our clients have barn cats, others don't. If you don't, you just will never put barn cat on here. And then your adopters are never going to ask you about it. They won't know it exists. Once somebody finds an animal they're potentially interested in, they will be able to click onto that pet profile. They'll see even more information about this pet. They'll see some photos. Again, everything I'm pulling here is pulling directly from PetPoint, so no duplicate data entry. We show those characteristics here with a little bit more information, as well as just the general demographic fields that we are pulling straight from PetPoint. If the person is really interested, they'll then click Adopt Me, and they will get into your adoption questionnaire. So this is client asks, oh, excuse me, I gotta let somebody in. All right. So these are just the questions that this client asks. They want to know if anybody in the household is allergic to pets. We will show only the questions that you have told us to ask. So that's really individual to you. One of the benefits of Add-a-Pets is that if somebody is, shopping around for a pet for a couple months, really being careful about finding the right fit, they won't have to fill everything here in again. We will retain this information for them. We will, on every new submission, ask if anything has changed, in case that would be helpful for you with matchmaking, if they've moved or something that would be relevant for how you're going to place a pet. But for the most part, we're going to save a lot of time here. We also have the ability to do questions by species. So if somebody wants both a dog and a cat, they apply for a dog today, they apply for a cat tomorrow, we're not going to re-ask them any questions that we've already asked. So this question, for example, who's in your home, that they'd have already answered with that dog application, but we might ask them just about their cat experience. So there's a little bit of responsiveness to the species that you have. From here, they submit it, and then they get an automated email from you that says what next steps are. So for this client, they would tell them to schedule an appointment. But for you all, you're going to say, great, you facilitated this process. You've made it a lot faster. Now come to the shelter, and we'll really take care of things for you. Then they're going to get to the shelter, and we're going to have a check-in kiosk for them. This is what that kiosk is going to look like. They can access this either on a shelter managed device, so an iPad or desktop, some other kind of tablet. It's really up to you. Or if you want, we can also set them up with a QR code that they can scan and sign into on their own device. I actually recommend using these in conjunction just to prevent any bottlenecks. So people who are really comfortable with QR codes can do it on their phone. People who aren't have a little bit of a lower barrier option to get in here. We will ask them what language they want. On this account, I just have English and Spanish, but we can support whatever languages you want. I just need the information I just need the direct translations, basically. We are always going to ask the user for their email. The email address is the unique identifier in Add-a-Pets. It's how we make sure that we're only working with one person, even across different locations. Actually, let me try these. If you have a super, super low-tech adopter who doesn't have an email, I generally recommend that you ask for a friend's email, a family member's email. That way you have some way to contact if that pet ever comes in again to you. But if it's absolutely necessary, either help that person off of Add-a-Pets, or there are free email temporary generators that you can use to kind of get past that stage. Let's see. We will ask basic information This is an email address I've never used before, so brand new to this system. But if this person had been to your location before, if they had submitted an application online, or actually if they've been to any Adipets location before, we will skip this stage because we already know this information. We do always ask for birthday because we have contract generation inside of our system, so we have to confirm that everyone is over 18. Everything that we just saw has been universal, so that will happen for any of our clients. Everything after this is going to be fully custom for you all. So you would probably have reasons for the visit being, I submitted an application online, now I want to meet the pet, or maybe I'm just browsing, I'm just looking around. So we can just pick one of those. But I can do, I think, up to 9 options. So if you also say have a clinic at this location, and you might have someone who has a foster animal coming in for a clinic appointment, I can put an answer for that there as well. Up to you. From here, I'll click continue. We have an end message that you would set. So maybe if you're saying, okay, I'm here to meet an animal I applied for, you would say something like, an adoption counselor will be here to help with you soon. Please sit in our lobby, or something like that. If they had selected the option of, I'm just here to look around, you might say, great, cats to your left, dogs to your right, scan the kennel card, if you've got any questions about that. Another thing that has happened in this moment that's hard for me to demonstrate in a training is that we can also send a custom text message to this person. So if this person has said, I'm here to adopt a pet, but I'm just looking around, maybe we send a text message to them that links into your general adoption policies or the fees that you would charge, some kind of information that might help them before they are able to talk to one of you. Once they press continue, that just regenerates. Now they're ready for the next person to be here. I'm going to quickly now transition into the staff point of view, but I'm going to do it quickly because I want to stay in the adopter world. I want to show you what one of the smart kennel cards is going to look like, because that is probably going to be the next step for this adopter that we're thinking about. So Adipets will produce for you a kennel card for every available pet. And this will include, again, all of that information that we're pulling from PetPoint for you, the default photo, this would be your actual logo. And then the really big thing that we're going to do for you is this QR code here. I can change this language to be custom if you want to say something else, but basically we want to invite the adopter to scan to get a little bit more information. They'll also be able to submit an application or answer your questionnaire in person at the shelter. So maybe they didn't look onto your website before, they just came in, but they do want to facilitate that process, then they can scan this and answer all those same questions that you have. I will show you in a second how to help somebody who hasn't applied online and can apply on your phone. But before I get to that, any kind of questions about first steps, the first way that the adopters are going to interact with you via Adipets?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You said that the bios will be pulled from PetPoint. Is that correct? Like all the Pet Tango information and everything will be automatically pulled?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So here, let me just show you. Sometimes it's helpful to show you the kind of ugly back end for it. Let me pull up PetPoint 1. So we'll just get this string of ugly text. Each animal also has an individual URL that includes more information, like those photos. So this is how we're going to pull information about your animals, and which animals we pull are going to be based on the stage that you choose inside of PetPoint. So when we look at all animals on Adipets, that's going to be all animals you told us to consider available for adoption. So we're not going to pull any of your medical hold animals, only ones that you want to promote. Usually this works seamlessly. If there's ever an issue with something not updating or you're not seeing the right pet, we have a support chat. I'll show you how to get to that in a second. But their first step is just going to be come here to check what code we're getting through. Occasionally, we have to kind of like negotiate with PetPoint to make sure they're giving us access to the information they have. But in short, yes, you are not going to have to re-upload photos, for example, because we're already pulling those from here. So that's actually a good transition into looking at this first menu here. So this is what Add Pets is going to look like from your point of view. You are going to see a few different menu options here. And I'm going to start now by talking about this All Pets menu. After that, we're going to go to Visitors and Contacts. And then we're going to finish up with the Adoptions menu. You'll most likely only go there if you're placing an animal in foster. So again, All Pets is All Pets from the Add a Pets perspective. So just the ones that you've told us to consider available for adoption. We will organize them here. You'll be able to select which location that you are looking at. So if you only work in one location, you'll probably just pick one and then leave that on forever. The filters are sticky, which is great most of the time. But if you ever come in and you feel like you're missing a pet, just double check that you clear everything first. We will also be able to separate them out to in-shelter and in foster to just help you organize. Most of this here is going to be intuitive, and I won't walk you through it step by step, but there are a few things that I want to point out for you. The first is going to be this notion of visibility. So visible, we have three options here. We've got visible, hidden, and restricted. Right now on my demo account, everyone showing on this first page is visible. That means that they are showing on your public website. Anybody who sees that pet on your public website can apply. That's going to be great 99% of the time. You want to do as much marketing for them as you can. But let's say Big Boy here is this great cat. My best friend told me that she's really interested, and I'm at the shelter, so I can help her out a little bit. Like, I know she's going to be a really good home for this pet. Maybe in this case, I want to give my best friend a little bit of time to apply before anybody else can. In that case, I could keep this animal available on PetPoint and on Add a Pets, but I can hide them from the website. So to do that, I would click on that row for this animal. That pulls out a drawer over here. Again, this is repeating all of that information that we've pulled from PetPoint. And I can just toggle this off here. So now Big Boy is hidden. Available on Add a Pets. I can take action, but not just anyone can apply. We can still have my best friend apply if we want to collect all of that information. To do that, I would just need to send her the exact URL for this pet. To do that, I'll click on these vertical ellipses throughout the system. That's going to indicate an actions menu. And then I'll go to this first option here, that private page. So you can see this looks exactly like what we accessed before. So you can't tell just from looking at it that this animal is hidden. It's just that only somebody with this exact URL is going to be able to apply for Big Boy. We can, we can also generate that public link. So even if that animal is visible for anyone, but you wanted to really promote this animal on social media or something like that, again, you can click on the vertical ellipses, get the public page. It looks exactly the same. It's just a matter of getting there. And then it's really easy. Maybe it doesn't work out with my friend. I can just toggle back on visible for applications. Where did that go? I can just toggle back on visible for applications, and now that pet is showing again. We can also automate some of this. So I don't have a good example of this right now, but in addition to the green visible, the red hidden, we also have a gray restricted. That means that that animal has reached the number of adoption inquiries that you have told us to consider the maximum. So say you usually get inundated with applications for puppies. I can set our system to say, once a puppy has 2 active applications, we're going to pull that animal off of the website. You're still going to be able to take action on them inside of Add a Pets. You don't have to do anything in PetPoint, but we're going to stop getting people's hopes up from your website, because we know that from that group of 2, we're most likely going to find the adopter. If you then tell me once that animal gets down to 0 active applications, put them automatically back on the website, we can do that for you as well. So that can help you manage some community relations, especially around animals who tend to generate a lot of attention without you having to do any work there.
I do have a question around that. Like, what have you heard from other shelters in terms of, because our process has always been like, come to the shelter, first come, first serve. So I could see for like highly adoptable, like desirable, say we get a golden retriever tomorrow, this causing some concerns with, you know, how do other shelters handle that in terms of, you know, if you have an individual that's like, well, I applied through Edipets online in advance, and then you have a person that's coming day of that may have gotten here sooner. How do other organizations kind of triage those situations? Do you know?
So it varies widely, and it can work really well if you keep like a really low application limit for those kinds of animals, and then you at least reduce some of that interest. Other people don't use these application limits at all, and like are really just being very consistent about saying like, just come into the shelter. That's when we start first come, first serve. All you're doing is facilitating the process for when you get here, but it doesn't guarantee anything. So we can make it both ways, make it work both ways. My recommendation is just don't try to do both at the same time. Don't try to give equal priority to somebody who is applying online to someone who's standing in front of you. It works best if everyone on staff knows that between those two options, here's the person who's giving priority. Based on your description, I might actually tell you not to do application limits to start and just see if this is helping with the way that things have been going. It takes me less than 2 seconds to add those for you. So if you want to impose those later on, we can do that.
And just to add to that, Michelle, when someone submits a questionnaire online, they're going to get a response that we can like make whatever we want it to say. So we can say like, thanks for submitting your questionnaire on Fluffy. Please note that this does not mean that the animal is reserved for you. We still operate on a first come, first serve. This will just speed up the process of adoption once you get up to the shelter. Like something to clarify that it doesn't mean the animal's reserved.
So I'm just showing you what Sarah's talking about. So at each step in this process, Adipets is communicating on your behalf. So we're trying to, you know, prevent you from having to answer the same questions over and over about how your adoption process works, right? So this is the email that Sarah's talking about. As soon as someone submits an adoption inquiry, they get sent this email, and you get to set, you as an organization will set what language is going out here, and to hopefully make those responses really clear. If this becomes a concern, like if you're getting people being really confused, let me know. I have some other examples for how we can make this work, some other flags. So there's a fair amount of flexibility. So once we have a good sense of how this is working from you, we can always adjust and make sure it's working as well as possible. I also want to point out the filters here. So right now I have more than 800 animals in my demo account. If someone is coming up to me and I'm an adoption counselor, this isn't really going to help me point out particular pets for them. So we'll want to add some filters and get down to a workable list for this adopter. So I always recommend starting with status. So adopted is obviously adopted. Approved means really close to adopted. We've already sent the contract and we're really just waiting on the adopter to finish up the paperwork. So I probably only want to select available animals that I might recommend to this person. I can also work down by type. Say I know this person is looking for a young male cat. I can add all of those on here. I can also, if my team is using pet characteristics really frequently, I can add on all of those as well. And that will allow me to narrow down to, now I've got a list of 21, something a lot more usable if I'm going to be trying to make recommendations to someone. And if I click onto that row, I get that additional information about that pet here as well. I also want to point out this return section for you. So these are animals who have been marked as adopted on Addepets, but who are showing as available from PetPoint. So 99% of the time, that's going to indicate a return. And we just have to ask you to confirm that and to confirm whether or not you want this pet to be hidden or available. So we will show this counter here for you so you know if there's any animals you have to pay attention to in this way. And to get that pet back on the website, you'll go to these vertical ellipses. You can check back into these, like this old information, the records we have on Addepets about this pet. But most of the time, you're going to know if there's an intake. You're just going to click make available. You're going to let us know whether it's a surrender or return. You can put in a reason. But really, the most important thing is going to be to set that animal's visibility. From what I've seen, most of the time you're going to want to make that pet visible. But maybe this is an animal who generated a lot of interest the first time around. You've got a few people who, wanted to adopt this pet, but the first person in line got him. Maybe in that case, instead of just making them visible, you want to make them hidden and contact those previous applicants before. Then that's an option available to you.
Hey, Sarah, this is probably a question for you. So considering the return process, would this be something that our admissions team would then have to navigate through and learn, or do they just process a return on PetPoint and it would auto-populate into this? Because returns come through admissions, not through adoptions, typically.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Still through admissions, all of that, once they hit the available stage, that's when it will communicate to. So once they're returned and all of that happens, they go through if they need their medical exam, all of that. Once they hit the available stage, that's when it'll pop up on here again. And we can assess, like, I know we've had a few cases where we're like, maybe we need to change the animal of this because something happened with the adoption and we don't want it as public, stuff like that. But no, admissions won't have to do anything with Addepets.
So animal makes it through admissions, animal becomes available again. That animal would get added to this list that then the adoptions would sort through to see if we want to get them back as visible or not. Is that how this goes? Tight.
That's what I would recommend.
So there is a bit of a step that adoptions does then have to put their foot in regarding returns to make sure that they do get back on the list and they're visible and whatnot, correct?
Yes, yeah, you would have to take this step. We don't have a way to automate it.
If there's something like there's an issue with the adoption, like a behavior issue, and maybe that animal needs to be reassessed, it won't automatically go on there? Will it? Someone has to physically go in and change it.
Are you talking about if the animal is pulled off of the available stage to another random stage and then moved back to available?
No, it's like a less than 30-day return for like a behavior.
The sound is really bad for you on
issue,
there.
so it's not going to be immediately like available again, or maybe like we decide not to make them available again.
Sound is really bad for you on there.
Yeah, sorry, we're working on 2 different devices.
I think I could gather what she was saying. I think this is like Camille I think that's what they're saying is unless you go in and hit and filter the returns and say you want it visible, it doesn't automatically show up. So for those 30-day adoption returns, unless you go in and say, yes, make it visible again, it isn't showing up. So I think that's what you're referencing. But Sarah, to your point, that does bring up. I think this is like Camille I think that's what they're saying is.
Can you type in the chat?
Just let me know when you all are ready to move on.
If you guys can hear me, if you can type it in the chat or text me the question, I can read it out loud. Just to clarify that we got it answered.
While we're waiting on that answer, I actually do have from your answer that did bring up a question for me. So in terms of, once it's visible here, so say a situation does come up where, the animal needs to be reassessed behaviorally, or, it requires medical treatment, and we update the stage and pet point away from available, then do we need to do something in Adapets for it not to show up anymore, or will it automatically remove it from there?
That will automatically remove it from there. So if an animal was at one point available, and then maybe you put them on medical hold, Adapets will see that that animal is no longer listing onto this feed, and will say, okay, we can't do anything with that pet. Pet's not adoptable. In that case, we make that animal archived. So it doesn't show as part of this 831, but if I come here, toggle on that archived pets, I can see all of the animals that this happened with. So this is an old account, so quite a few. So all of these animals are maybe on medical hold. Maybe they were adopted just in the base software because it was that low-tech adopter who that was just the fastest thing to do things with, or maybe this animal transfer that. We keep them here because maybe they are made available again. Maybe they get returned after being adopted outside of Adapets. We want to still have that record on them, so we don't delete it entirely. But it is just automatically responsive to what's going on PetPoint.
Gotcha. So thinking about, sorry, that did prompt another question. Thinking about the reverse of that, say we have an animal that's, being treated, for like an upper respiratory infection or something where like we'd like to still advertise that animal as available for adoption because we're expecting that, it'd still be nice to garner interest, because if someone wants to adopt that animal and medicate it in their home, wonderful. Is there a way to still have them made available, or would we just need to leave them in the available stage in that case?
So the easiest thing would be to leave them in the available stage, but that might get confusing from the pet point of view, right? And you might have someone changing it. So I'm imagining that's a pretty rare case. In that case, I would recommend just going up here. Sorry, I did too quick. To add new pet, you'll replicate some of the information that you have, and then I don't want to waste your time and go through it because it's pretty intuitive. But once you have this, they'll be able to show on your website as though it were a synced record. This would be a little bit odd, once that animal becomes available again, because you'll have two records. You'll have the manual record and the synced record. So I would just recommend hiding one, working with the people you already know are interested. But I think that's a rare enough case that you would be able to negotiate that.
Okay, thank you.
I think so they texted me with the question. I think it's just clarifying that there's no, PetPoint doesn't, or Adopets doesn't recognize any difference in the number of days of a return. So if it's the animal was returned after 3 days versus 60 days, it's going to populate on that return list either way.
Yes, as long as the stage and PetPoint has been made available, it will populate on your feed and therefore onto Adapets.
So if the animal is returned and automatically added to like a behavior stage or a euthanasia stage, it's never going to pop back up in Adopets. It's only if it's staged again as available.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then if it's staged as available, we still get to decide if we want to make it visible or non-visible. So if it was accidentally made visible and we decided, oh wait, or if it was accidentally populated on that list and we decide, oh wait, that animal needs a behavior assessment, we could catch it before making it visible.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And you can, if you miss that, you can always just come here, toggle. That has happened automatically. So it's a 1 second change.
Okay.
All right, couple more things I want to show you on this All Pets page. So this is how I got to print those kennel cards that I showed you earlier. If you just need to print one, you can go to that Actions menu, click Kennel Card. That'll bring up that print preview. If you want to print them for everyone at the shelter, I would recommend going to filter only for your available animals and confirming that, and then printing all filtered pets. So you're not going through one by one and doing a million clicks. If I do this, it's also going to ask me in a pop-up if I want to mark these cards as having been printed. And then that becomes useful because I can also do this kennel card printed filter, not printed, confirm. And that way, maybe this is something I have to do at the start of every day, but I'm just getting down to that list of 10 instead of having to reprint all of my available animals every day and wasting a bunch of time and paper. Got that. We also have some foster functionality. So we do have a way for fosters to help you with getting animals into their permanent homes. I think looking at the time, we won't have the ability to like go through what that would look like for a foster right now. But I want to flag for you here, there's an option. You can assign a foster parent that invites them to use Adipets. I'll work with Sarah. We'll either schedule another training or I'll record something for you showing you what that looks like. But this is not something we can pull from PetPoint. PetPoint doesn't put your foster information out publicly because that'd be a privacy concern. So you would have to assign this person additionally inside of Adipets. Okay, let's stop preamble. And now we got to get some pets adopted. So let's go into our visitors menu. I can see who is in my shelter today, who I want to work with. So I've just got 2 people in today. Alex and Alex Conrad showed up. This visitors menu is going to show you everyone who has showed up at the shelter for any reason today. If I want to check on previous days, I do have this date filter here so I can see what happened before, but most of the time you're going to be wanting to work on this actively, so you can just stay on this first day. We can also filter by reason. So if you all are adoption counselors, maybe you just want to check on your reason if they're here to adopt. If you decided you wanted to use this kiosk also for intake reasons and that team, maybe they filter to just look at animals who they've lost a pet, something like that. Really up to you. We also have different kinds of statuses for these people. So I can see Alex Conrad checked in this morning. He's just wandering around as far as I know. Whereas Alex James, I worked with. We had a meeting with him. We did active things, and now he's left and hopefully adopted. We also have a waitlist functionality. So based on that flowchart that I have on your process, anybody who's just coming in to wander around, they're just going to end up checked in. So you're only going to see them on that visitor status. But if they applied from home or if they scanned the QR code to apply, we're going to throw them on that wait list. And that wait list is going to indicate people who are actively waiting to speak to a staff member. I'm going to just do an override here, both so you know how to do it, but so I can get this person on the wait list quickly. I'm just going to switch Alex Conrad's status so that he's waitlist. If I come over here, I can see this has reduced to 1. I've just got 1 person who is waiting to speak to a staff member, and that's who I'm going to want to worry about. This will populate with a full list. It'll go in order of who has been waiting longest to who is newest arrived, so that you all can work with people as they came in. And what's really, really great is now I know who this person applied for. So if I click, I can see that Alex has applied for Kirkland. That's the one active adoption inquiry I have. I can also see our history with Alex since we've been using Adipets. So I know that he adopted Wedge and Nell. And so as I work with him, I'm going to want to do some counseling on how to introduce a new pet to the pets you have at home, for example. Any questions before I move on from this about the visitors menu?
Hi, I have a question. So if there's multiple people on the wait list, do we have to say oh, I'm helping this guy, just so we don't double serve the same person?
So this function is very flexible to you. So it's up to you. If you want to indicate that you are in a meeting with someone, you can. Yeah, I should have shown you this, I'm sorry. But you can also ignore it if you don't want to. So say I'm going to be the next person to help Alex. I could go over here to these vertical ellipses. I can notify Alex. This is going to send a message that says, we're ready to help you. We're going to hold your spot for a few minutes. I can assign myself to be the one to work with him, or I can assign someone else if I'm a manager running this. Click confirm. We throw this little bell so we know when Alex was notified. I can always re-notify him, or if he ends up being a no-show, I can just say this is done. But let's say he does come to the front desk, we're ready to work with him, then we can click start meeting here. Then he's off the wait list. No one else has to worry about him because I'm helping him. But if I go back to the visitors menu, I can see he's now in status meeting. And if I hover over, I can see how long he was in each stage.
And then can we send like specific messages? Because I know some of us are going to stay at the adoptions desk and some of us are going to be like floating around the campus. So is it possible to like send specific messages of like, oh, I'll be like looking for you, or hey, come to the adoptions desk, or that kind of thing?
No, this is one of the few communications inside of Adipets that is set. So we send them both a text and an email that says, we're ready to help you. Please come to the adoptions desk. We'll hold your spot for 5 minutes.
But there is the opportunity. So if you are floating with around and you see that Alex James is the next on the list and you're standing there talking to Alex James and you start this communication, you can say, hey, you're going to get a text, ignore it. I'm standing right in front of you. We can just start the process right now.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, just clarifying on how that would work. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. We're gonna run out of time, so I'll connect with you after, Sarah, on next steps. But let's get to helping this person. So let's say Alex came in. He's interested in an animal. None of these really work for our purposes, but let's say every animal he applied for online just like isn't gonna be a good fit. I've talked to him a little bit. I've seen his application, so I know this other cat is going to be really good for him. In this case, I would go to this actions menu to new adoption inquiry, and then I can assign him to any of the other pets that we have available. And then we can, process the contract and the checkout from there. Maybe I get lucky and that pet's right at the top, or maybe I have to search for the name or ID. Either way, once I find the pet I want, I'm going to click on Assign Pet. And if Alex had answered all of these questions online, this would not show. We would just have that available in a second. But if he's one of those people just wandering in, it'll prompt you to answer all of these questions. If you're a really seasoned adoptions representative and this is going to take more time than it's worth for you, you do have the option to skip all questions and just get straight into what's going to be most important to have for this person. If not, then you can use these as prompts to help you with that question. We already know Alex's address, so we're not asking that, but we're confirming some important information. It's up to you all if you want to collect ID information or not. And we're going to click Submit, Review Adoption. This gets me into the pet details page. All of your animals will have a pet details page. It's kind of your internal view on everything that has gone on with this pet from an adoption questionnaire perspective. You can also get to it from the actions menu on the All Pets menu. If I look at this, I get a reminder of what this pet is like, what this pet's going to need, but more importantly, I'm going to see the list of adoption inquiries. So this is every inquiry that has ever come in for this pet and that status. So for Big Boy, this is the only one, and that makes my job really easy. I don't have to worry about anything else. But maybe Big Boy is one of those animals who is a little bit harder to place. I might have a long history with him. I might have a few applications here that are listed as archived. And that's just the language that we use to indicate declined, but not being judgmental. It's just not a good fit. We might have somebody here who withdrew. We might have a few people we've looked at their applications for, but we haven't done anything with. Those would be under review. But right now, we just had Alex with that pending application. And now I want to get into the next steps. I want to review this. I got another snapshot of my history with Alex since we've been using Adipets. So again, I know he's got 2 at home, so I want to do some counseling around that. Now I'm going to get into our adoption inquiries page. I'm going to give you all a tour of this page, then we're going to actually take action on it. That's probably going to bring us to the end of our time, and we did not get through everything I wanted to. So don't worry, I'm going to kind of like sit down and think through what we have to cover after this and then send you all a plan for the most efficient way to do this. All right, so adoption inquiry, we have seen the status change. We went from blue pending, which means it's been submitted, but no one's opened it yet, to this yellow under review status. That means that someone is looking at this person, considering them for that animal. We have process tag, which is kind of like substatus for that status here. So we can create a drop-down list that is custom to you all. I think for most of your pets, you're not going to need this. It sounds like you're doing mostly like, you know, on the spot adoptions. But if you ever do a home trial or a foster to adopt, you can put on a substatus there, and then that becomes searchable, sortable in a way I'll show you next time. It's just a way to organize your inquiries in a new way. We got our actions menu, which we're going to come back to in a second. Some of these are intuitive. Favorite just throws a little star on his name. It's up to you all how and if you use that. We've got some who'll use it for like volunteers, people that they are pretty much approved to adopt anyone, or people use it like if they have a good adopter but they couldn't find a pet for them today. Basically, someone to keep in mind. Thank you. Archival or approval is the big decision we're working towards making. So archival, again, is rejection, but without judgment. Approval is we're 99% sure you're going to be the one to adopt. Let's get the paperwork going. And we also have some ways to communicate with this adopter. So I said at the start, Adipets is helping you communicate with this adopter. I have already sent 2 emails to this adopter. The first that said, okay, you submitted this inquiry, that facilitates it, but come into the shelter. The second that says, you know, we're starting to review your application. Sometimes I turn this off. We might end up turning this one off for you if it feels like too much, but we can start with it and then always go back from there. But sometimes there's things that we just can't predict from an automatic process. So maybe if you all want to use this like manual smart response for this is our special weirdo dog and we want you to bring in, want you to come in and meet with our trainer or something like that, you could set that on settings to be something that you could just send automatically from here. You could also say something completely unique to this pet. So if you went to custom smart response, you can say, big boy wants to meet you, you know, something that isn't going to be applicable to any other pet that we couldn't predict. And then you can send this email message directly from within Adipets. I pointed towards this section a little bit already, but this is our progress bar. So green means it's already been done. Yellow is what we're working towards. So inquiry was submitted. I started the review. Let's see if we can approve this adoption and get this pet out of our care. At each stage, you'll be able to hover over and see who took this action, so just in case there are questions later to work with this pet. We show the animal photo as well as the adopter photo. The adopters almost never put a photo, so we're probably going to redesign this, but it is there. We give you a reminder of this pet information. We also have adopter information as well. If you click on see all, you can see things like the document ID as well as their physical address. So maybe you have a dog who has stranger danger. You need to make sure that they're not going to an apartment complex or to like the center of a downtown. This is where you would find that information. Communications, we can send internal notes. So if I want to let everybody know how this process is going, that will populate with my name. And that way, if anybody has questions, they know who to ask. Whoop, what is happening? My internet went out for a hot second. Once I get this back, the next side is going to be the adopter notifications. So that's going to show me the record of every email that I have sent to this person. So we will see the exact language they saw about on your application submitted response. Come on, internet, you can do it. Over here in a second, you're going to see, yeah, okay, perfect. Now we've got this load. So you can see, I've turned off the submitted for this one, but you can see that application under review is showing here. Pending payment is going to be blank right now because we haven't approved anyone to adopt this. We haven't approved Alex to adopt this animal, so we haven't charged him yet, but once we do, it'll show. We can check back on his old applications, see if there were any notes about that that I need to keep in mind. But really, you're going to be coming down here to this adoption questionnaire. So this is going to be all of the responses to that you gave. I'm so sorry, you all. I picked a bad example because I skipped the questions on this one, so it's not going to show the answer. So I'm going to have to ask you to imagine, and I will show you this better next time. This would be everything that you tell me to ask. So who's in the home? What pets are in the home? You're going to get these answers here, and that's going to help you make a decision about whether or not this is going to be a good fit. Now it's decision time. So I want to say whether I'm going to archive or approve this adopter. I'm not going to do it, but I want to show you what archival will look like. You will see internal notes, and you just say, you want to tell all of my coworkers why I said no to this. If I want to use a do not adopt list, I have that option. If you use something like that on PetPoint, this is separate because again, PetPoint's not going to share person information publicly with this. After I write the internal reason, I'm also going to think about how do I communicate this to an adopter. I can have a standard smart response. So a standard thing that I'm going to say, hey, it didn't work out this time, try another pet. Or if I want to, I can tell this person exactly why they aren't adopting. Maybe that helps them if they had any questions. But hopefully that's not going to be the case. And instead, we are going to approve this adoption. I'm gonna edit this down to 0 because I don't want to pay real money on a fake animal. If you all apply a discount, you can tell us why you're applying a discount. This would be a custom list for you all, and that way you can keep track of things. Confirm, approve adoption. Approval is the best thing that AddaPets does because 3 things just happen simultaneously. First thing is I pulled the big boy off of my public pet listings. He's not quite adopted, but he is so close that we don't want to get anybody's hopes up. I also sent an email to everybody else who has an active application for Big Boy, letting them know that he's pretty close to getting adopted. Now's a good time to look at those other animals we have available for adoption. And then finally, and most importantly, I sent an email to Alex that says, hey, you are approved to adopt, here, sign the contract. That's your next step. If Alex wants to do this via text message instead, we can also resend that contract via text or email. Maybe he lost his email. We can always resend. Or what I'm going to do now for the sake of ease is I'm going to complete this contract on my shelter managed device. That is really, really helpful for if you've got a low-tech adopter who can't do it on their own. It is limited to certain users because it's just a sensitive feature. It's a way to sign basically on someone's behalf. So depending on your permissions, you might not see it, but I do want to flag that it's there, and I'm also going to use it just for speed to show you how this all looks. This page is going to populate is going to be the adoption contract. If Alex completed this from his email or from his text, he gets to the same page. So this is exactly like what it's going to look like for your adopter, regardless of how they access the contract. This is just our download contract. What we would have here is your real contract. It can be multiple pages. We can't, this is just one PDF. So if you want to support multiple languages, I just recommend putting on this page, like, see page 2 for this language. And that way you can direct people that way. I can do additional terms if you all have like a partnership with Hills or Purina. We can ask them if they want to opt into that as well. We will prompt them to sign electronically. From here, we get onto a checkout page. So this is a free adoption, so I can see that here, but usually we would be charging something. We also always do a recommended donation. It starts with that $20 suggestion, although they can always edit it. They can also get rid of it. So we will just uncheck and then it goes away. You just click through to get through this.
Hi. Sorry to interrupt, but we do have 1 minute until we open, so this team over here does have to get to their
Gotcha.
duties.
All right, so let's just confirm real quick. We get a little bit of confetti for this adopter. And then if I come up here, my final action, once this loads, will be to confirm. I will send you all the recording of this meeting. I'll also type things out, make recommendations for next steps, and then I will connect with you, Sarah. How does that work?
Yes, that is perfect. I know we can talk about a couple things, so that'll be great.
All right, perfect. I'm going to end this call then. Thank you all for being here, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Katelyn. We really appreciate it.
All right,
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.